Justice and Mercy in the Old Testament, Part 2. We continue the subject that we started in the previous lesson.
And not only God demonstrated his principles of justice and mercy in the Old Testament as we saw last week, but he had a vision of how to flood the whole world with the knowledge and experience of those concepts. For me, this lesson is more about God's intent in finding ways of how to demonstrate what his character is all about to the whole world. First, through the mission of Israel, and second, today, through our church.
And the focus this week is on the role of the church in hopeless situations. This talk is not about where should we live, looking for safe and isolated from this world environment. It's about our call and responsibility in places and situations that we would naturally like to avoid. The study leads us to listen to the chorus of Old Testament voices calling upon God's people to reveal his character to the world. We're looking at some interesting messages and experiences from such like Ezekiel, Isaiah, Amos, Micah.
We said in the previous lesson that being conscious of justice and mercy is in itself worshiping to God. However, is it possible that I can find strength within myself to live like that? God's honest opinion is found in Ezekiel 37, 1-14, where he says that we are like dry bones on the floor of a valley. So how can I have life and give life to the people around me? Definitely it's not possible. The strength is not found within me, but God will make breath come and enter in me. He will attach the tendons to my bones. He will make flesh come upon me and cover it with skin. All done by God, all for one purpose, for the good works that can reach out to others.
We certainly need this effect of God on our damaged nature. When we have experienced and seen this miracle and revival, wow, isn't it amazing to be alive again? And isn't this the holy grail for the whole humanity? The secret for eternal happiness, energy, youthfulness? Shouldn't our ultimate desire be to bring it to all these hopeless places around us?
In another vision, Ezekiel in chapter 47 this time sees another motion picture, and instead of dry bones, this time he sees a dry land. Who is going to refresh this dry land? Who is going to transform the dead land and dead sea into lively and fresh land and waters? The water from the sanctuary is the answer. Something has happened from chapter 37 to chapter 47, because now it is not God who is bringing life to those who need it. The sanctuary is motionless, but the water that flows represented by the people of God. And today this is us. The church is supposed to bring refreshment to the people around us.
And if the water is coming out of the temple, it will flow toward the Dead Sea, going largely through desert country. Are we part of this water, or is our source from somewhere else? In the Old Testament, Israel had a very tangible way to experience this in the year of the Jubilee, or the year of the Lord's favor, as also called. Isaiah 61 is an amazing description of this experience. Care for those in need, restoring the broken, freedom for the captives, release from darkness and despair, comfort for the grieving, rebuilding ruins, restoring cities. And who are the ones called to be priests and ministers in these communities?
While reading the lesson, I've been thinking, isn't it too much burden and responsibility that God commissioned the church to do his work? Without any doubt, it's a blessing, but how hard it is to be a source of life for somebody else. After all, only God could represent that. Isn't it too much to bear? It's hard. It's an outrageous, self-denying pain when we have to go out of our way for the benefit of others. But isn't it the same when we have children? We are not ourselves. However, we dream for their best future in abundance and happiness. This feeling of contribution for the betterment of others somehow instantaneously cancels all the hardships that we experience. And those of you who have tried it would understand what I'm saying.
Witnessing the reborn spark of life and hope in places where it was gone is doing so much for you. It's giving you so much as it is for the other side. But God has a question for us. In Micah chapter 6, he is asking, "My people, what have I done to you? How have I burdened you? Answer me. Didn't I deliver you? Didn't I guide you? Didn't I protect you?" And then there is a whole discourse on what can we do in return? How can we please God? What can we do for Him? And in verse 8 it says, "He has shown you what is good, and what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God."
And when Jesus sent his followers to the end of the world, he really commissioned them to go and make a difference in people's lives. And we saw in this lesson that the church is like a river, a transformer of lives. But this river is sometimes a small spring. Sometimes it's up to the ankles, sometimes up to the knees, and sometimes up to the waist and above. It's not important how much of an impact I'm making. God just wants us to be His waters for change, for good in other people's lives.
And we will start looking at what Jesus has to say on the subject, beginning from next week.